This is The Calling of St. Matthew, a real masterpiece by Caravaggio that today we are going to discover together. Intro, let's start. Hi everyone and welcome back to Exploring Art. This is Alessandro and today I'm super excited because we are going to talk about The Calling of St. Matthew by Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. One of the most irreverent but also one of the best painters ever, with such a messy life full of passions and contrasts. And all his skills and attitudes are visible inside his paintings, and in particular on this one we can see really something unique and unbelievable. And I could continue with many adjectives to describe the importance of this Baroque painting, but it's better if we start to read it so you can understand better what I mean.
And there we go. This painting is an oil on canvas completed in 1599-1600 for the Contarelli Chapel in the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi in Rome, where it remains today. And actually it's a big canvas, almost a perfect square of 322 centimeters by 340 centimeters, or 127 inches by 130 inches. By the way, I suggest you to watch this video full screen so you can enjoy better the details and live a full immersion in this beautiful work of art. It hangs alongside two other paintings about Matthew's life, painted by Caravaggio as well: The Martyrdom of St. Matthew and The Inspiration of St. Matthew. And this is an important info, so don't forget it because it's going to be useful soon. But let's go in order. The scene depicts the moment when Jesus inspires Matthew to follow him. Matthew, in fact, was a tax collector, and the story from the Gospel of Matthew says, Jesus saw a man named Matthew at his seat in the custom house, and said to him, "Follow me." And Matthew rose and followed him. Very simple and direct. What we have here is Matthew sitting at a table with four other men, and on the right, Jesus with another character, probably St. Peter. And Jesus is pointing at Matthew.
Okay, that sounds pretty easy, flat, but which one is Matthew? There is still a debate about it, and it depends on the surprised gesture of the bearded man at the table. Most of the experts, in fact, assume St. Matthew to be the bearded man sitting at the table and pointing at himself like asking me in response to Christ's summons. And this theory is justified taking into consideration the other two works of art of the series, The Inspiration of St. Matthew and The Martyrdom of St. Matthew, where the bearded man who models as St. Matthew appears as well. Caravaggio, in fact, used to have models posing for the scenes in order to reach a deeper level of realism, and it seems that the model of St. Matthew was the same in all the three paintings of the series.
Because of that, this is the theory commonly accepted, and the experts identify St. Matthew as the bearded man. But what if instead the bearded man is pointing at the young man at the end of the table, whose head is lumped, asking him in response to Christ's summons? Well, this is the other theory based on the idea that the painting depicts the moment immediately before a young Matthew raises his head to look at Christ.
I wanted you to remember both theories, but now let's move on reading the painting because Caravaggio was a genius and for sure he wanted to keep the work of art deliberately ambiguous, but there are a lot of other surprising elements that we can understand.
Let's start with the main element of the painting. Probably you are thinking now, Jesus? Not really. And actually, this is the first surprise we have, the light. Coming inside the scene, in fact, Christ brings the true light to the dark space of the sitting tax collectors, but it is the light to rule the scene. We can divide the painting in two sections, a lower half with the characters and an upper part completely empty, except for a blind window and a light. And look how big is this empty part. Plus, without the light, the scene would be completely dark. Okay, I know this could sound obvious, but usually the painters want to make everything visible and clear, while Caravaggio uses the light with various purposes. First of all, it is a metaphor, a common idea in the Catholic religion. Jesus, Son of God, is the light for the man. The contrast between light and dark is one of the main elements that identify Caravaggio's paintings, and he is one of the best artists, or probably the best, to master these combinations in all his works. This contrast, called chiaroscuro, is actually a fusion that allows Caravaggio to create drama, volumes, and drive messages and ideas. If you follow the light, so Jesus, the Son of God, you can save yourself. And that is why the light reaches the faces of all men sitting at the table. But just few of them decide to look at it. God let you decide to believe or not. So let's follow the light path. Jesus is the first figure on the right, and it is extraordinary the realism of his face that Caravaggio is able to create playing with the chiaroscuro effect. What apparently surprises is also the fact that Jesus' eyes are in low light and just a part of his face is visible. Actually, this is part of Caravaggio's genius, since this solution makes more difficult to understand who Jesus is really looking at, and we cannot clearly read his feelings since mouth and eyes are in the dark. It is not a deep dark, but enough to make the interpretation difficult. Even if, looking at him, we feel awe and we perceive a sense of power and extreme confidence, the strength of a leader, a young man who has a clear plan. And I want to emphasize the word man since the aureole is barely visible. And of course, this is not casual, but a choice of Caravaggio on making the scene more human and less divine. Another element that seems obvious is Jesus' hand. Before I said pointing at him, but I disagree on this common opinion. Jesus, in fact, is not pointing. He is in the act of pointing. Both his fingers and wrist are bent, and Caravaggio caught the exact moment when he is indicating the right person at the table. The hand completes the line from Jesus' face, and if we look carefully, it seems almost floating in contrast with the dark wall on background. That hand is a gesture of creation of a new man, and it is not a coincidence. It is a symmetric copy of Adam's hand from the famous The Creation of Adam in the Sistine Chapel. Following the light, we reach the two young figures that often I hear saying are looking at Jesus. I disagree, they are not. They are looking in Jesus' direction. Like they are surprised by the intense light, but they are looking behind him. They represent the choice on belief or not. They are not only not impressed at all, but completely indifferent. But on them, we can see Caravaggio's skills. The faces are so real, as well as the garments, and every single shade is so realistic. And I want to focus a moment on this detail. Look how the muscles of the left leg are perfectly designed in the moment of the torsion of the body. Continuing following the light direction, we can draw some straight lines, and now we are going to find out the magic and genius of Caravaggio. Drawing a line from Jesus' eyes and following the top of his hand, we can perfectly reach the bearded man. So it seems Jesus is pointing at him. But look what happens if the line goes under Jesus' hand, parallel to the light. And then I draw another parallel line that follows St. Peter's hand. Surprise! Now it seems that everything indicates the young man as Matthew.
So, who is right? Both and none? Here what I think, and it's a personal theory, both the young man and the bearded man is Matthew. The young man is a young Matthew during his activity as a tax collector and before the faith touches him, while the bearded man is a more mature Matthew changed by the light of God.
Let me explain to you why. The body language helps to understand that. The young man is just nodding on the money, perfectly focused on it without noticing what is happening around him. He is keeping tight on his left hand a bag of money. Conversely, the bearded man is really astonished, his eyes staring at Jesus and his torso and legs twisted in surprise as well. But one of the main details that makes me think they are the same person is their hands. The young is keeping the money, collecting it in front of him, while the bearded man is caught in a clear gesture of giving it. These two hands so posed in the gesture and in the shapes, we see 3 fingers starting from the pinky of the young and thumb and forefinger of the bearded man. These 2 hands seem not just touching each other, but almost one single hand. A connection between the young, greedy sinner Matthew and the wise Saint Matthew. The old man between them could represent the transition. Getting old, Matthew started to really see what is important in life. And I don't think it's a coincidence the fact that we cannot see the old man's eyes to understand if he's looking at the money or the hands. Now the bearded man's left hand seems to have a clearer meaning. We don't know if he's pointing at himself or the young man because probably he's indicating both. That's why his left hand is between his chest and the young's head. And maybe because instead of indicating just with the forefinger, like we usually do, and both Jesus and Peter are doing in this scene as well, is using also the thumb. 2 fingers, one pointing at the young man's direction and the thumb exactly pointing to his face. One last point. Studying the painting with X-rays, researchers discovered that the figure of what we think to be St. Peter was added by Caravaggio in a second time. We don't know why, but it's interesting the fact that St. Peter is pointing to someone while there was already Jesus doing it. It's true that Caravaggio was irreverent, and we are going to learn more about it in the next videos, but it's true also that he was used to give a meaning to every character, in particular someone so important to stay with Jesus. That means we have 2 important figures, Jesus and Peter, pointing in parallel to 2 figures set at the table.
What can I say more? In front of something like this, we understand why art is so beautiful and this journey is so fascinating. Check also on my website because you can find more information about this work of art and not only. And remember to subscribe and turn on the notifications because in the next episode I'm going to continue talking about Baroque. So see you soon.